What happens when someone assumes their wealth and power make them untouchable, only to meet someone who refuses to bow? One Friday evening, inside a luxury restaurant in Beverly Hills, California, the place gleamed from corner to corner. Polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers, dark oak tables with crisp white linens, and subtle classical music humming in the background. The kind of restaurant designed to make everyone feel that money wasn't optional. It was a requirement. Waiters and waitresses moved in perfect choreography, balancing silver trays and crystal glasses, each step precise, like they were part of some quiet ballet that only insiders could appreciate. Among them, Selena Moore carried herself with a quiet authority. Slim, poised, with deep brown eyes and hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, she had the kind of presence that didn't need a uniform to command respect. People noticed her. Not just her efficiency, but her awareness. She remembered names, orders, and small details about regular patrons. Tonight, however, someone arrived who didn't care about details or manners. Khalid Al-Fayed, a billionaire entrepreneur from Abu Dhabi, strode into the restaurant. His tailored navy suit looked as if it were spun from silk and money. A heavy, diamond-encrusted watch glinted with every movement. He walked with the arrogance of someone who believed the world existed for him alone. Selena approached the table at the center of the restaurant, the one closest to the window overlooking the Beverly Hills streets. Her notepad in hand, voice calm but professional. "Good evening, sir. Welcome. Can I start you with a drink?" Khalid didn't even glance up at first, his eyes locked on his phone as though the world beyond the screen didn't exist. Seconds stretched into what felt like eternities before he finally looked at her. His gaze swept over Selena, calculating, almost predatory. Water, no ice, lemon on the side. That's all," he said sharply, voice clipped, more command than request. No smile, no acknowledgement. Just the cold efficiency of entitlement. Selena gave a small, practiced nod. "Right away, sir." Her tone didn't waver. She walked away, carrying the weight of calm control. But then Khalid leaned toward his companion, a young man in a black blazer, clearly eager to impress, and muttered a few words in Arabic. The words were soft, but the malice behind them was unmistakable. Even without translation, anyone could sense the disdain, a sneer masked as a whisper. Tell us in the comments what you would do in her place, and don't forget to subscribe to support stories that celebrate strength and standing up for what's right. Selena paused in the distance, her fingers tightening around her notepad. Her jaw didn't move, but her mind did. Arabic had been part of her life for years, not from study alone, but from family. Nights listening to her grandmother recite stories, prayers, and proverbs that shaped her understanding of dignity and respect. The tension began to grow, like the first crack in a calm lake before a storm. Khalid didn't notice. He believed the language would shield him. He believed no one here could understand. Selena returned with the water, placing it carefully in front of him. Her eyes briefly flicked to Khalid, catching the subtle twitch of his smirk. Years of experience taught her one thing: arrogance can always be cut down, but it must be done with precision. "You interested in tonight's specials, sir?" Selena asked, calm, polite. Khalid's eyes met hers, a challenge burning within them. "I said water. Must I repeat myself?" The associate across from him shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between Selena and his boss. He didn't know how to intervene, how to read the room that was already subtly tilting. Selena simply nodded and walked back toward the bar. Another waiter, a young man named Derek, watched from the sidelines, whispering, "Everything okay over there?" Selena gave a faint shrug. "Some people don't see you. They only see the tray." Her gaze returned to Khalid, who now spoke again in Arabic, sharp, dismissive, cruel. The words were aimed directly at her, mocking her posture, her uniform, the way she carried herself. Selena felt the sting, but she didn't react immediately. This wasn't the first time she had faced disdain. It wasn't even the worst she'd heard. But it was different tonight. It was deliberate, venomous, meant to belittle her in front of witnesses. She carried the notepad like armor. "Have you decided on your main course, sir?" Khalid's eyes narrowed. "Lamb. Make sure it's cooked properly. I have little faith in these kitchens. Selena nodded, writing nothing. She already remembered his order. She turned to the associate. And you? I'll have the sea bass, please, he said quietly, relief in his voice that someone acknowledged him as human. Selena's smile returned. Vegetables or rice on the side? Vegetables, he replied. As she walked away, Khalid muttered again in Arabic, each syllable loaded with contempt. Selena heard enough. The insult was clear, and now it was time to respond, but carefully. Not with anger. Not yet. She handed the slip to the kitchen and leaned on the counter, taking a quiet breath. The storm was coming, and she was ready. Selena didn't rush. She never did. Her steps back to the table were deliberate, almost meditative, like a dancer moving to a rhythm only she could hear. The restaurant's ambient hum continued. The soft clink of silverware, low conversations, the occasional laugh. Yet near Khalid's table, the energy had already shifted. Something invisible had changed, and everyone around it sensed it. She reached the table again, her notepad poised, pen tucked neatly behind her ear. Would you like another glass of water, sir? She asked, keeping her voice neutral. Calm, unshakable. Khalid looked up from his phone, smirk curling his lips. In Arabic, he whispered to his associate, Look at her. She struts as if she owns the place. Laughable. The young man beside him swallowed, eyes darting to Selena. He wasn't used to hearing cruelty tossed like daggers in a language he only partially understood. He shifted nervously in his seat, hoping the storm would pass. Selena's grip on the tray tightened ever so slightly. She didn't answer, didn't flinch. She'd been through this before. Years of arrogance, years of people assuming that because she wore a uniform, her presence could be ignored. But tonight was different. Tonight, she wasn't just a server. She was the keeper of dignity in a room full of entitlement. Setting the glass down with deliberate care, she finally spoke softly in Arabic. Sir, do you always measure people by the suits they wear, or is this a special occasion? Khalid froze mid-motion, his smirk faltering. The words had cut through the air like glass. His phone trembled slightly in his hand. The associate blinked rapidly. Comprehension is dawning in his eyes. Excuse me. What did you say? He stammered, voice shaking. Selena's eyes met Khalid's directly. She didn't smile, didn't raise her voice. Every word was precise, delivered with quiet authority. I heard everything you said, every word, every insult. The restaurant's energy shifted instantly. Nearby diners glanced over, sensing the tension. Some didn't understand the language, but tone, posture, and unflinching gaze told them all they needed to know. This was no ordinary exchange. This was a reckoning. Khalid attempted to recover, forcing a laugh that sounded brittle and sharp. Ah, you understand a few words of Arabic, I see. Cute. Selena's lips pressed into a thin line. Not cute, she replied, her Arabic flawless, her tone unwavering. I understand everything, the words, the intention, and the arrogance behind them. The associate went pale, eyes wide. For the first time, the balance of power at the table seemed uncertain. Khalid, used to commanding rooms, used to bending people with wealth and titles, now felt exposed. His carefully crafted confidence, his armor of money, had a flaw. Selena leaned just slightly closer, voice still calm, precise. You assumed I would not understand. You assumed your wealth and position would shield you. But respect is not earned by what you own. It is earned by how you treat others. A few diners nearby exchanged glances. A woman whispered, almost inaudibly, Did she just... Another man muttered, Wow, look at her. Khalid's jaw tightened. He spoke again, voice sharper now, his pride bristling. You think speaking a few words makes you my equal? Selena didn't blink. She straightened, her notepad pressed lightly against her chest. I don't need to think it. I know it. The associate slumped slightly, realizing that the narrative he had been observing, his mentor is untouchable, the billionaire above all, was unraveling before him. Khalid's eyes flicked around the room. He saw people staring, not in admiration, but in quiet judgment. Selena continued, still in Arabic, each word deliberate, cutting, yet dignified. Your arrogance blinds you. You believe that money shields you from truth. But truth finds its way, and tonight it is standing right in front of you. Khalid's fingers flexed against the table, trying to regain composure. He was used to control, used to dominance. But now every eye in the restaurant was on him. He realized for the first time that power without respect was meaningless. He attempted a retort, in English this time, voice dripping with forced calm. You are a server. You are here to do your job. Nothing more. Nothing less. Selena tilted her head slightly, letting the weight of silence linger before replying. Her voice now switching to English so everyone could understand. Being a server doesn't make me invisible, and being rich doesn't make you right. Gasps rippled through the room. Conversations paused. Silverware clinked softly, a misplaced fork signaling the tension that now gripped the air. The associate lowered his eyes, no longer daring to speak. Khalid, for the first time, realized the spotlight wasn't flattering. It was exposing. Selena took a slow breath, her gaze unwavering. Every word you've spoken, every assumption you've made about me, has revealed more about you than it ever could about me. The restaurant held its collective breath. Staff paused mid-step. Diners leaned forward in curiosity, anticipation. The air was thick with judgment, but also admiration. This wasn't just confrontation. This was truth laid bare. Khalid's hand twitched over his phone. He wanted to retreat, to regain control, to issue some sharp reply, but the words wouldn't come. He could feel the eyes around him, the weight of observation. He was no longer just a man in a restaurant. He was a spectacle, and he had no script. Selena's voice softened slightly, still deliberate, still firm. My grandmother taught me that the tongue is a sword. You can use it to cut down pride or to lift someone up. She raised me in Casablanca. I learned Arabic to speak with her. Every prayer, every story, every lesson. I learned through her words, and today those words remind me that respect is never optional. The associate exhaled, finally speaking, voice almost reverent. She's right. You can't just assume. Khalid's composure cracked. He leaned back, staring at Selena, realizing that the room wasn't just watching. They were witnessing a lesson, one he hadn't anticipated. Selena gave a final, quiet nod, stepping back just enough to signal her control of the moment. Your words cannot define me. Only my actions and my respect for others can. Even the kitchen staff paused mid-motion, watching as dignity faced arrogance and held steady. Khalid's mask of dominance, crafted over decades of wealth and influence, had begun to fracture. Khalid's hands clenched into fists on the table. His polished demeanor, cultivated over decades of boardrooms and private jets, was unraveling like a fraying rope. Every syllable Selena had spoken, every measured glance, chipped away at the fortress of arrogance he carried like armor. The associate shifted uncomfortably, looking between them, clearly realizing that his mentor, the billionaire used to commanding every room, was now powerless under the weight of a waitress's calm authority. You speak as if respect is something I owe you, Khalid said, voice tight, struggling to keep the venom from dripping through. You're a server. You're not. Not what? Selena interrupted softly, leaning just slightly forward, eyes locked on his. Not what you think I am? The words cut sharper than any blade he had ever wielded in negotiations. The restaurant seemed to pause. Forks hovered mid-air. A nearby couple froze mid-conversation. Even the faint classical music couldn't mask the silence that had spread like a wave across the dining room. Selena continued, switching back to Arabic, her voice low, crisp, precise. You assume because of my uniform, because of my role here, that I cannot understand, that I am beneath your notice. But understanding is not bound by title or wealth. Khalid's smirk wavered. He tried to regain control, laughing softly. though it sounded forced, brittle. Ah, so now I am being lectured by someone who carries trays for a living. Is this the Beverly Hills way? Selena's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. No, this is the way dignity works, even when it's inconvenient for people like you. The associate leaned back, hands pressed together, nervously. He whispered under his breath, half to himself, half to Khalid. She's speaking the truth. Khalid's head jerked toward him, eyes flashing. What did you say? Nothing, the young man stammered, eyes dropping. Selena didn't break her gaze. She set the tray down in front of him gently, precision in every motion. Your words don't scare me, sir. They never have, and they never will. Khalid's fingers tapped the edge of the table, restless. He was used to owning silence, filling it with presence, command, money. But now the room's eyes were fixed on him, the gaze of onlookers pressing in like invisible walls. Every whispered glance, every muted fork clink reminded him, here he was just another man. And he was losing. You misunderstand your place, he finally snapped, Arabic now sharper, louder, meant to dominate. A woman like you, this is not your world. You're here to serve, nothing else. Selena's eyes narrowed slightly, her calm unshaken. She leaned closer, voice firm, unyielding. No, sir, you misunderstand. Your money, your power, your title, they are meaningless when you treat others as if they are less than human. Respect is not bought, it is given, or withheld. A hush fell across the dining room. Staff paused in the aisles, diners leaned slightly forward, and even the kitchen staff peeked through the swinging doors. Everyone could feel the tension snapping like a live wire. Khalid tried to rally, speaking again, this time in English, voice rising despite his best effort to mask frustration. You think a few words make you my equal? My wealth? My influence? Do you realize who I am? Selena tilted her head slightly, voice quiet but carrying across the table. Every word deliberate. I don't need to realize who you are. I see you for what you've shown me today. And that is not power. That is fear masked as arrogance. For the first time, Khalid's mouth opened, then closed, searching for a retort that wouldn't come. He realized every word he had ever wielded as a weapon, the sharp sarcasm, the subtle insults, the quiet dismissals, were now impotent. Selena straightened, taking a step back, letting the presence of truth fill the space. You assumed I would not understand, that your insults in a language you thought was secret would remain hidden. You assumed wrong. The associate finally spoke, voice shaky but clear. Sir, she's right. People are watching. Your behavior isn't unnoticed. Khalid's face reddened. He realized that the room was no longer his domain. He was exposed. For the first time, the billionaire, the man who had once walked through airports, boardrooms, and gala halls believing the world bent to his presence, felt the weight of accountability. Selena's voice softened slightly, her tone now personal, almost maternal, yet still commanding. My grandmother raised me to know that words carry weight. Every story, every prayer, every lesson she taught me in Casablanca shaped who I am. And today your words have revealed more about you than they could ever reveal about me. Even diners who didn't understand Arabic leaned in, sensing the emotional gravity. Eyes flicked from Khalid to Selena, taking in the reversal of roles. The truth standing tall against arrogance. Khalid's jaw tightened. He picked up his glass, drinking slowly as if the cold water could wash away the sting of humility. He tried to regain composure, forcing a laugh that died in his throat. Selena's gaze remained steady. Her presence was the anchor now, the measure against which everyone in the room unconsciously judged. You asked me earlier if I thought I was your equal, she said softly, switching back to English. I don't need your permission to be. Everyone here already knows the answer. Gasps and murmurs rippled across the room. The power dynamic had flipped. The billionaire's arrogance had been replaced with uncertainty, hesitation, and the uncomfortable realization that wealth cannot command dignity. Selena didn't gloat. She didn't sneer. Her voice remained calm, even collected. She simply stood there, a testament to restraint and authority. Money can buy many things, sir, but respect, that must be earned. The restaurant held its breath. Every eye in the room was drawn to Khalid's corner table, to the billionaire who had believed he owned every glance, every second, every space. But now, he was just a man, exposed, his armor of wealth and titles cracked and brittle. Selena moved with quiet purpose. She approached the table once more, not with anger, not with confrontation, but with the unshakable calm of someone who knew exactly what needed to be said. The tray in her hands was almost ceremonial now, the simple act of service transformed into a statement of authority. She set down a small plate of bread and butter, precise, careful, professional. Her eyes met Khalid's, unwavering. Then in Arabic, her words pierced the tension like a knife, but with elegance. Your words cannot diminish me, sir. They reveal only your own shortcomings. Khalid's associate flinched. The young man had seen confidence before, but this was something different. The server's voice carried weight, history, and dignity that money could never replicate. Khalid's smirk faltered. His usual mask, the quiet arrogance, the studied calm, slipped with every heartbeat. You speak Arabic fluently? Khalid's voice wavered, a touch of disbelief creeping in. Selena's gaze never wavered. She nodded slowly. Fluently. Every word you've said, every insult, every attempt to belittle me. I heard it all. The room reacted almost instinctively. Patrons leaned forward. Servers paused mid-step. Even the couple at the window froze mid-conversation. They didn't understand the language, but the force of presence, the sharpness of truth, resonated. Khalid's voice rose, defensive now, laced with frustration. So, you've been mocking me? Answering back? Do you think that changes anything? Selena tilted her head slightly, voice calm, precise, carrying across the table in English so the entire room could hear. No, sir. Your arrogance has already spoken for itself. I am not mocking. I am responding. I am reminding you that respect is earned, not assumed. The silence that followed was heavy. Even the soft clink of cutlery in the background seemed to pause, waiting. Every staff member, every diner felt it. Power was no longer in Khalid's hands. It was in the quiet authority of the woman standing before him. Khalid tried again, his tone sharp, brimming with the remnants of entitlement. You are a server. This isn't your place. You cannot. Cannot what? Selena cut in almost gently, but with unmistakable authority. Cannot show you the truth. Cannot make you accountable for your words. This is exactly my place. Every space belongs to those who occupy it with integrity and courage, not those who wield wealth like a weapon. The associate sat back, finally swallowing his nervousness. He whispered under his breath, She's extraordinary. Khalid's hands gripped the edge of the table. For the first time, he realized the magnitude of what he had misjudged. Every insult tossed in Arabic, every cruel comment meant to belittle, had failed. Not because he hadn't been eloquent or precise, but because he had underestimated the person before him. Selena leaned in slightly, voice dropping to a softer, more personal cadence, still in Arabic. My grandmother raised me in Casablanca. She taught me that dignity is not in what you own, but in how you treat those around you. Every word you've thrown today, it's on you, not me. Gasps of comprehension floated across the room. Diners turned slightly in their seats, servers paused in their duties, and the young associate's jaw dropped. Even without knowing Arabic, the conviction in Selena's tone, the steadiness in her posture, made the message clear. Arrogance meets accountability, and humility has a voice. Khalid's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his glass, drinking the water as though it might wash away the humiliation. But it couldn't. The presence of truth, unshakable and calm, filled the room more than any of his gold watches or designer suits ever could. Selena straightened, switching to English so everyone could understand, her words deliberate and heavy with meaning. You asked if I think I am your equal. I don't need your permission. Respect is not optional. And your wealth, your influence, your title, they do not define it. Murmurs swept through the restaurant. Finally, someone whispered. Someone put him in his place. Khalid's face flushed. He tried a last retort, voice shaking with desperation and frustration. Do you think this is going to change anything? Selena's eyes never left his. Her voice softened, gentle yet firm. No, sir, I am not here to change the world. I am here to stand in it with dignity, and every word you've spoken today has shown that respect cannot be bought. It must be earned. The associate finally spoke again, quiet but firm. Sir, maybe it's time to listen. Khalid's shoulders slumped, the last remnants of his arrogance fading. He looked around, noticing for the first time the awareness in the room, the silent judgment, the collective acknowledgement of a truth he had long ignored. Selena took a slow step back, giving the space of authority to the silence she had created. The tension remained, but it was no longer hers alone. Every diner, every server, every observer felt it. The billionaire's ego had been humbled, not by anger or confrontation, but by quiet, unyielding dignity. Finally, Khalid leaned back, exhaling slowly. His eyes met Selena's, unsure, almost respectful. You speak beautifully, he said in Arabic, voice softer than before. Selena's lips curved slightly. It's not the language that's beautiful. It's the respect behind it. The associate nodded subtly, a small, quiet acknowledgement. Respect lasts. Money, it fades. Khalid's gaze drifted to the window, out to the bright Arizona streets where life carried on, indifferent to wealth, titles, or humiliation. For the first time, he understood that power without respect was meaningless. Selena returned to her duties, calm, composed, the lesson left intact, irreversible, and witnessed by everyone present. She didn't need to humiliate. She didn't need to gloat. She simply held space for truth. The restaurant exhaled as one. Conversations resumed. Silverware clinked. Diners leaned back, sipping drinks, whispering admiration. The lesson had been delivered, and everyone who saw it knew. Dignity, courage, and respect outweigh arrogance, no matter the title or wealth behind it. And Selena? She simply smiled faintly, straightened her notepad, and walked away. Professional, unshakable, victorious without ever raising her voice. The restaurant slowly returned to its rhythm. Plates clinked, soft conversation floated through the air, and the gentle hum of the kitchen resumed. But the atmosphere had shifted. Every patron, every server, every observer carried a subtle awareness of what had just occurred. A single moment of courage had rewritten the dynamics of the room. Selena moved between tables, collecting empty plates, refilling glasses, always maintaining that quiet, confident composure. But even as she worked, she could feel the energy she had unleashed lingering. Eyes followed her with admiration, respect, and a touch of awe. She had not raised her voice. She had not flung insults or demanded acknowledgement. She had simply stood in her truth. Khalid and his associate finished their meal in silence. The associate glanced at his mentor, uncertainty etched across his face. Khalid, for his part, seemed smaller somehow. Not because of his suit or wealth, but because the illusion of control he had long carried had been stripped away. He was left to face a lesson he could not buy, a truth he could not evade. When the manager, Charles Vega, passed by Selena, he offered a quiet nod. Handled perfectly, he murmured. Selena's faint smile was acknowledgement enough. No words were needed. The lesson had been learned by everyone present. Nearby diners whispered among themselves. "Did you see that?" one woman asked, her voice hushed but filled with admiration. She didn't even raise her voice, and he had no answer. A man near the bar nodded, tapping lightly on the counter. "That's the kind of strength money can't buy," he said quietly. Selena returned to the bar to collect an order for another table. As she walked past Khalid's corner, he looked up, hesitant, uncertain. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small envelope, crisp bills, neatly folded. But Selena didn't even glance at it. She met his eyes instead. Calm, steady, resolved. "Respect matters more than tips," she said, voice low but clear. Her words hung in the air, heavier than the cash he offered. Khalid hesitated, then gave a slight nod, the closest thing to an acknowledgement he would ever offer. The associate fidgeted, unsure, but finally muttered, She really knows what she's doing." Selena returned to the floor, continuing her work with quiet dignity. Every tray she carried, every plate she set, now carried the weight of a story that reminded everyone in the room of a simple but profound truth. Titles, money, and power might command attention, but they cannot demand respect. That must be earned. As the lunch rush dwindled, staff whispered among themselves, recounting the confrontation. "I've never seen anyone handle that with such composure," Brandon, a fellow waiter, said quietly. "Not even managers at the top know how to do that." Selena paused for a moment, adjusting her apron, letting herself breathe. She reflected on the path that had led her here, the years spent living abroad with her grandmother, the lessons in dignity and resilience, the moments where she had been underestimated time and again. All of it had prepared her for this moment. She had turned a simple act of service into a demonstration of integrity and strength. Khalid and his associate finally left the restaurant. Patrons returned to their meals, conversations slowly picking up again. But the energy had shifted. The room had witnessed something rare, a quiet, unshakable assertion of dignity in the face of arrogance and cruelty. Selena watched them go, her eyes steady. The lesson wasn't for revenge. It wasn't for applause. It was for truth. Every glance, every whispered acknowledgement, every subtle nod of respect in the room affirmed that. Charles Vega approached her again, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You showed everyone how it's done," he said quietly. "Not just them, everyone watching." Selena smiled faintly, a small, confident gesture. "Thank you, Charles. But this isn't about me. It's about how we all treat people who deserve basic dignity. That never costs a thing." The afternoon carried on. Patrons ate, staff moved efficiently, and the sun poured through the restaurant windows. But the story lingered, invisible but unmistakable, woven into the air. A billionaire had believed his wealth and status could shield him from accountability. A waitress had quietly dismantled that illusion, revealing the power of quiet strength, truth, and respect. And as Selena cleared the final table, she reflected on the lesson she hoped everyone carried with them. Never assume you know someone's story. Never underestimate the strength of those you dismiss. And never forget that respect, unlike money, is priceless, and it can be wielded by anyone brave enough to claim it. The restaurant exhaled as one. Patrons leaned back, servers straightened their posture, and the energy, once tense and oppressive, was now infused with a subtle, almost sacred acknowledgement. Courage and dignity triumph, and humility has a voice louder than wealth ever could. Selena returned to the bar one last time, setting down her notepad, smoothing her apron. A small smile touched her lips, not of victory over another, but of knowing she had stood in truth. She had transformed an ordinary Thursday into an extraordinary lesson for everyone in that room. As the doors closed behind the departing billionaire, the room felt lighter, freer. The lesson remained. Power is temporary. Wealth is fleeting. Arrogance can crumble in an instant. But respect, earned and maintained, endures forever. Selena moved on to the next table, her quiet strength intact. The story of the day etched into the minds of all who had witnessed it. She didn't need accolades. She didn't need recognition. Her dignity had spoken for itself, and that was enough. The room hummed once more with life, laughter, and conversation. But beneath it all, the energy had irrevocably changed. And somewhere silently everyone remembered, the quiet voice of truth can topple the loudest arrogance.